Coach, make a couple comments, then we'll get started.
All right, I appreciate everybody being here. It's good to be back on campus, and we actually get to coach our own players here. So this is it's an exciting time for us. First, condolences. Philip Marshall, I met him twice, and obviously was a staple in the Auburn community and certainly the journalism community here. Every story you hear is he did it the right way for a really long time. So condolences to his family, prayers with them, and then National Girls and Women in Sports Day today. I know we put a piece out on it today, but we've got some incredible women that work here, powerful, strong, in some key roles that we count on to keep this operation going. And somebody's got a daughter and certainly have a ton of respect for what they do. So kind of a cool day that we are honoring. I know everybody's here to hear about our one signee today. A big time punter. We had to go international there, but obviously signed at 7 a.m. His local time, which ended up for us being yesterday, but added a punter from Melbourne, and I'm excited about him. You know, obviously we've got one here that's going into his senior year, so to have a guy here that can learn under him, and certainly important. We don't talk about it a whole lot, but important for us to get a guy that we can bring in, develop. Big kid with huge leg, really neat young guy that we're really excited about. And then we got 40 new guys here. It was an interesting process coming in and one evaluating after getting through the retention process, and that was an interesting process. I joked a lot with Taylor. I've joked with our AD, joked with our staff, like, man, if there was a documentary crew in here, man, somebody can make a ton of money. And then I actually proposed that we do that to make a ton of money, and I was informed that the SEC already has a contract for that, so at some point maybe that'll happen. But it was a fascinating month and a half there, from the retention side to making decisions to the pre-portal to the portal. We brought in 40 guys, and more so than talking about anybody that's not here, the 40 that we brought, where those guys are anywhere from a week to 3 weeks into training. Got a chance to actually be here and be around them here over the last couple of weeks, and I would tell you, collectively as a group, at least up until this point, we brought the right guys in, and that was more than anything for us. It was a mix of bringing in guys that, one, have experience, they've been in moments that matter, that count, and then a mix of young guys that you've got to fill the roster out, and guys that we feel like have potential, guys that we feel like have roles that can grow into roles. And so kind of all over the place in terms of, there were some spots where it was absolute needs, like absolute rebuilding from scratch positions, wide out, O-line, tight end, edge rushers, and then there were some spots where it's like, man, if we can get corners in that mold. And then there were some spots where it was, man, we need some depth, or, man, can we find some young guys that fit what we're looking for, measurables, maybe don't have a ton of production yet, but can and might turn into something. Used a ton of resources to do it. Certainly the staff, a lot of analytics behind it, and it's a puzzle you're piecing together. That's why I joke with, man, if you can have a documentary on this, it would be fascinating. Just how many different things go into acquisition, from evaluation to the recruiting part to bringing them on campus. I will say this, and doesn't get talked about a lot, but the support system here, part of it has been in place, part of it we put in place, but the people, like to get a young man on campus, get his academic situation evaluated, get him admitted, get him here housed into permanent housing. There's a lot of people that go into it, and there's too many to name, but there's a ton behind the scenes, from compliance to academics to admissions to people doing evaluations in the middle of the night across campus. The one thing I'll tell you is football is really important here. People care, and it's really, really easy to get things done once you get the ball rolling. So I'm super grateful to a lot of people, like I said, compliance, academics, admissions, professors on campus, people willing to open up buildings, to people in the community. You walk into breakfast or lunch or dinner, and every single person you come across, I'm talking about people in the community, welcome to Auburn, War Eagle, welcome to Auburn, War Eagle. When it's like that, and there hadn't been the last 5-6 years a ton to cheer about, but when it's like that and you bring families in, you bring kids in, that matters. And that's a huge reason I chose to come here 2 months ago, but it's a huge reason a lot of guys are coming in. And so we've gone from the portal, kind of closing that out, and as fast of a jump start as we can get on 2027. And man, that's been awesome. We spent time in December, spent time in early January, and the portal butting up to contact period. You can talk about the ways to improve it, and I'm sure a question will come up on it, but there were days where I was somewhere flying back for a dinner, somewhere flying back to a dinner, driving back to a dinner, the back and forth, but we were able to get out and see a ton of 27s in this region, some nationally, and get into some fights that I didn't know if we can get into, but we have. And so we've got a great jump start to 27. Same thing, we had a junior day for a basketball game. In the middle of January, we had a huge junior day on Sunday. And it's the same. You get around, you walk into Neville and welcome to Auburn, War Eagle, welcome to Auburn, War Eagle. You can sense the excitement, sense the energy. And that part has been absolutely huge. So we've gotten a really good jump start heading into spring in terms of being able to recruit at an elite level here as we move into spring and summer. So talent acquisition, retention, all of that exciting. Again, I think the part that we're all just giddy about is getting on the turf with our guys and getting to coach football. Everybody's like, man, how you doing? Like, I get to coach football finally. So it's exciting. Dudes are working their tails off. Strength staff's done a really good job, and it's really, really cool to see this infrastructure that we built really quickly. Everything from accountability to discipline to the strength to the speed, all of it, every foundational level of the program being laid. And so we're going to do everything we can to give ourselves a chance to have the best spring we can, and that's the only thing that matters right now, is getting into spring football as healthy, strong, well-educated as imaginably possible to go have an elite spring, get ourselves ready for summer. Questions?
Yeah, I'm going to start with Christian up here.
Yeah, Alex, Christian Clemente, Auburn 247. You talked about that 27 class. What has your message kind of been to those guys? How do you feel like you've been able to get off to such a strong start, trying to play catch up with a bunch of these guys compared to, other schools that have been recruiting them for a while?
Yeah, Christian, I think each young guy is a little bit individual. Obviously, majority of our staff's been in this region for the last however many years. From the defensive additions we've made to the offensive additions we've made, a majority of our staff to analysts, GAs, recruiting staff have been in this region. So there's a majority of those guys we've been in contact with in some capacity. Very few is it the first time you're having conversations with those kids. But the message has been really simple. This is one of the most historic blue blood programs in the history of college football. You come be the reason to get us back. And it's been as simple as that. There's obviously a lot of things you're selling, a lot of things that matter in today's recruiting. The thing that's not changed and doesn't get talked about enough is young men still crave a relationship, still crave a level of accountability, still crave development. And there's something about playing in front of 88,000 every week and being in a place like Auburn where football is really important. I hit on it earlier. The more we can get them here and get them around us, I think what these young guys have sensed is this is, one, a high-end staff, two, a really genuine relationship-driven recruiting process that then turns into a relationship-driven development process when they get here. And is that different? I don't know. I know that's just how we've always done it, in the sense that it's been, you recruit the whole young man. You got to obviously identify, and there's got to be traits you like, and there's got to be, the film has got to be what you need it to be, but then that part hasn't changed. And I think we recruit at a high level because we work harder than everybody in the country at developing the relationships. And you can catch up in that way. These guys know, man, like, I've been here for 2 months. And for the first 6 weeks, it's been our own roster in a lot of ways. But our staff, we found time, whether it's in the evening, in the middle of the day, you can get a kid on a phone and start to build and develop relationships. Technology helps. It's easier to FaceTime than used to be. You could only call. And so we've tried to fast track a lot of it, but a huge part of it has been getting these kids on campus here before this dead period so they can get around us and get around our staff. But that's what we're selling, Christian.
We go Bill and Ferg.
Yeah, Coach. Bill Cameron with The Drive on ESPN 106.7. You talked about Jumpstart. Talk about the importance of bringing in, I guess, 13 guys from South Florida who have played, practiced for you, to the culture and understanding the system, especially offensively.
Yeah, 11 of those guys on offense, Bill. And part of it is you had to replace a ton on offense, and so, I think for each of those guys, it started with, man, who do we feel like can help us win football games here? And I would tell you all 11 of those guys fit that. And you can look at it and say, man, how's there so many at South Florida? Well, I would tell you we recruited and developed at an elite level there. And so those guys were guys we felt like could come in, one, play, two, have surface level, or at least an introduction to what the heck we do on both, on both sides of the ball. Production was a key. There's a couple of young guys we brought, though, that we, as they were there, we thought, man, like, we hit on this, didn't we? Like this kid's better than we thought he was. But more than anything else, it's a group of guys in that locker room that some are better leaders than others, but all of them, when guys walk in there, and inevitably it's human nature to question what you're doing, because if what you're doing is different than what you're used to, you're going to question it. And for those 13 to say, hey, he's got us, man, just trust him. And that, I would tell you, is absolutely priceless. As you go in, that proof of concept I continue to talk about, they've seen it. And I'm not talking about scoring a bunch of points or any of that. Like, that is what it is, and that'll come, but more so just the level of accountability that's required to play football here, the level of discipline that's required to play football here, the level of work ethic that's required to play football here, the type of human being you have to be to play here. These guys can stamp you, and the time it takes to build trust and build relationships within a football program, I mean, that takes years a lot of the time. These guys can accelerate it by saying, hey, stop it, trust them. And when it's one of your peers telling you that, it's a lot easier to gain that trust. And obviously, we can't break it then, but it's definitely creates a level of trust that makes it a lot easier to then go ahead and teach from there.
Justin Ferguson, Auburn Observer. You guys got Jeremiah Cobb back, and then you went out and added 3 more guys who were number 1 running backs for their teams. Just, can you explain a little bit more about building the depth that way and getting several guys that were feature backs in their old schools to come here and play together?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a spot that you knew you had a guy in Jeremiah who had a phenomenal year a year ago. But it's a spot you got to have multiple guys that can do it. We're going to run the heck out of the ball. We've done it for as long as I've been a head coach and coordinator. That's where it all starts offensively for us, is you got to be able to run the football. And I don't care what league you're in, you need backs that can run the ball. The experience piece helps you in so many ways. That position, there's so much that goes into it. The pass protection part, you can't. The time on task and the reps in-game reps, speed of the game reps, you can't substitute. And the pass protection part is such a huge part of playing running back. You're a huge part of protecting the entire franchise every single time you decide to throw the football. So that's where the production that we were searching for came in. And guys, there's 3 guys that came in from 3 different places, 3 different styles of play. That was the other thing that we were looking for. We were looking for different types of backs than what we have here. We wanted some size there, we wanted some speed there, and we found it. And the key to the whole thing was we need guys that have produced at this level, because when bullets are flying, all those guys in that room can run the ball. The guys that are young can run the ball. It's can they protect? Can they catch it out of the backfield? Can they operate snap to snap? And when you play with the tempo we play at, you got to have multiple guys that can go, because it's, in general, you got to split the reps. But when you're going at that tempo that we are, you got to have multiple guys that are ready to rock, and that's why all those guys chose to come here.
Go Hope, JG, Nathan, Mike.
Alex, Justin Hokanson, Auburn Sports, On 3 Sports. Talk about, from an NIL perspective, coming in, adjusting to quickly, here's our number, here's what we got available. Now you've got to sort of figure out valuations and how do you dole that out. You're probably recruiting a different level of player as well than you were at South Florida. Resources are different. Just kind of how quickly did you have to adjust to what you have from an NIL perspective, and just working through that to maximize, what you have available?
Yeah, Justin, I think I could stand up here for a while, answer your question. The biggest difference, obviously, you're dealing with you're dealing with a different caliber of athlete, 1 through 105. And I think, and you guys will find that as transparent gets, the hardest thing I think for me was to figure out what does that roster number look like in terms of how many, like, you're sitting there, you got 105 scholarships and you got 105 roster spots, but man, do you squish that down into 70, 60? In an NFL model, is it 53? Or do you spread it out knowing that 1, it's a long season, 2, the caliber of player you're getting based on how much you got to spread out? Side note, they added a 9th game in this conference, so it's one more tough, grinded out matchup. You look at our non-conference, it's not a joke, and you look long-term too, it's serious as you go. And so the ability to develop guys, to develop depth long-term. I think the hardest thing, besides truly figuring out how many do you want to go one to what, like what's that number of, what do you truly got to carry in the sense of guys that are non-developmental guys, actually ready to play guys. That's 1. 2, when you're trying to recruit at the same time you're trying to figure out who you're retaining, that's the part that I think the juggling act there, those first couple of weeks of the portal being open. I think if man, these are the guys that are going to be here. And there were some guys we made decisions on quickly. There were some guys that said quickly, man, I'm here, I'm all in. And then there's some guys that are trying to figure it out. And respectfully, I get it. I really do. That, man, here's this new guy comes in, everything is flipped upside down. Man, do I want to be a part of it? And we didn't play in a bowl game, so those guys were gone a week and a half into me being here. So a lot of those conversations, I met with everybody initially, and then those conversations were ongoing. And so there were certain points where you're like, dude, are you going to be here or not? I'm good, just tell me. So I know if I got to go get another guy. That's why I made the joke about if you were going to film a documentary, this would be a fascinating one, because that's the balancing act. And you're keeping guys warm. They're taking other visits. Like, there's so many things that are going on at the same time. And they're things everybody's dealing with. I think when you're in year 1, it's even harder, just because there's the retention part of it is so up in the air, I guess would be how you would quantify that. And then the no bowl game too. Like, if we were playing the bowl game, you'd have them around at least another couple of weeks to where you're constantly around them. And those relationships are being built, and you can get to a final answer quicker. But I would tell you those are the two hardest things, is truly the size and then who's staying and who's not, so that you know who you got to replace. Because I think the figuring out who you want to recruit is probably the easiest part. Once you can look at film and see production and do digging, and do research, try to put a profile of who the young man is. And I would tell you, man, I don't have an exact number in front of me, but I would tell you about 75% of the kids we signed, there was a previous relationship, and like a real previous relationship where when you made that call, you knew who you were talking to, they knew who they were talking to, they knew the background of what you were coming with. It's that 25% where you don't have a relationship and you're like, man, I like the film, my digging research tells me he's a good human, injuries, all of that, like, what's up, man? Alex Golesh from Auburn. You know, it's like one of them, like, sup? And you start there. Those are the hard ones. But that process, I think, is the easiest part. It's the roster piece, who's staying, who's going, and the size of what you want to invest, knowing what you have financially. On top of then working like crazy to get that number to grow as fast as you can.
Hey, Alex, JG with Auburn Sports, on 3 Sports. First of all, I think you got a great idea on the documentary. I guess the SEC has enough money, so they don't worry about it. My question is about Byram. Do you feel like you got to protect him from some of the expectations? They're going to be crazy when we start getting closer to the season. I think a lot of people have put the Superman cape on him already. Kind of how are you planning to deal with that? I know he's played at a very high level, but still.
Yeah, it's an awesome question. I think anybody dealing with any sort of expectations, I think experience is what you bank on, that you've been there, done that, you've played in big moments, executed in big moments. I think having real confidence is what guards you from being unprepared for the expectations. And I think the only way you can have real confidence is if your process, your preparation was elite. That's where your confidence rests. Byram has been in these moments in a lot of ways, and has had success in big time moments, and then has also failed in some big time moments that he's been able to grow from. But those are all things you talk through, you go back to previous experience, and you build confidence. That position, really any position, but that position, man, like you can't fake the confidence, because they're split-second decisions you're making. But that's a young man that chased this opportunity in the sense that he wanted to play on the biggest stage, knowing that he's an NFL player that felt like he needed one more year at the highest level to get to where he wanted to go in terms of draft stock. And for him, he knows he'll be prepared for the moment. Anybody that spent a day with him here since he's been here would tell you, man, he's going to be ready for that moment. And that's where his confidence will be at in himself, knowing that he's worked maybe as hard as anybody in the country.
Hey, Alex, Nathan King, Auburn Undercover. Can you talk about your confidence level heading into spring with an offensive staff you are so familiar with, and putting together a playbook, putting together your offensive scheme and installing that, knowing that you've known so many of these guys on your offensive staff for so long, including your play caller?
Yeah, Nathan, I would tell you offensively, it's our scheme. And I say that only correct you in the sense that I think the reason why we've had success offensively over the years, and this goes back to Iowa State with Joel, is it has been a collective effort. I got a lot of credit for things I've done. Joel's gotten credit for things he's done. I'm telling you, it is as collective effort as I've ever been a part of. You add a guy like Larry Scott, who's been a play caller in this conference. You add a guy like Larry Porter, who's been a head coach, who's been in this league, who's been here. And these are guys that they sit there as they learn it, and you're getting ideas like, man, like, have you ever thought about this? And man, as long as I've done this, like, man, coach, I haven't thought about that. That's incredible. I think where our success has come from is us being able to have zero egos in that room. And that's driven by me. Joel Gordon has maybe the least ego of anybody I ever met. Like, that's driven by, like, just the ability to listen more than you talk sometimes. Cody Burns added so much a year ago to us down in South Florida, just from his experience being in the NFL for a couple years. And the probably biggest thing that we've got to get out of spring, and you asked about the confidence in the offense, we're going to install a base foundation of what we are offensively. The spring is going to be huge for us to know, man, what the heck are we actually good at? What are we not good at? And then build an offense around the personnel. What's made our offense as good as it has been is that we've adjusted year to year. And anybody that understands football has watched us from the Iowa State to the UCF to the Tennessee to the South Florida. Like, we've looked different. The core foundation of it has been the same. We're going to run the piss out of the ball. We're going to play really fast at times. The ball's going to get out quick. But formationally, we've evolved. What we've run schematically in the run game and the pass game has evolved. And that's been year to year. And I think really good play callers, really good guys that can scheme will evolve and change based on what you have and then what you're expecting. Because the guys we're playing against are also going to be different here. And so the ability to have an element of, not just an element of surprise, but an element of understanding what you're really good at. You got to think it's going to be a whole new O-line, a whole new receiver core, whole new tight end group, new quarterback, all of these guys working together for the first time. I would tell you the key to our success, and I would feel really confident, is if we left spring and we knew who our best 11 were, who our next best 11 are, who the other guys that can help us are, and then give us the month of May, June, July, August to piece together, schematically piece together an offense that will give us the best chance to go win.
Mike, Peter, Taylor.
Michael Giddens, War Report, Auburn. Coach, can you assess your offensive line and what you guys did there in the portal? Do you feel like you have the offensive line to give Byram the time he needs to be great? And then in regards to your question about the collective effort of the coaches, can you comment on whether play calling will be a collective effort or will it just be a single play caller?
You're talking about play calling offensively?
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah, Michael. Man, this offensive line, I think on paper you feel really, really good. I think I think we hit it on two sides. We had to go get immediate production, guys that have played at a high level, and you're talking about tackles, interior, like all of it, just purely what you lose to the draft, what you lose to the portal, some decisions we made to let some guys go to create some space and honestly some money to be able to allocate it differently. I would tell you what we brought in and what we decided to retain here, you feel really good top to bottom. We've got 17 scholarship guys that the top end of it in terms of production, you feel like you're going to have 9 guys that have played a ton of football that are ready to rock and roll. I think the key is going to be which of the guys that haven't played a ton yet take a giant step in order to be able to have the depth that we need. And we're going into it, and I could tell you, man, in your mind, you feel like you know who's going to start, but I'm 100% convinced it ain't going to look like that. And so there's a bunch of hungry guys. What's incredible, Michael, when you go into a situation like this is there's 17 guys. We got 3 walk-ons in there. So there's 20 guys in there that think they all have a chance to start. And I would tell you right now, I would agree with all of them that they all do have a chance to start and they all have a chance to earn playing time. When it's like that and you know, man, like, listen, these jobs are wide open. Go take it. The level of competition is going to be incredible, like incredible. And they're working that way in the weight room. There's a bunch of guys that think, man, I'm the guy. And when it's that way, you got a chance to be really good. To tell you, man, I know we're going to be elite at certain spots, man, I'd be lying to you. I can tell you I've prayed a lot about it, and I'm going to continue to pray. If there's one position I'm praying about, it's the O-line. So if anybody wants to join me, have at it. But there's praying about it, and then there's going to work, and I can tell you Coach Hood and PB and Micah, those guys have worked incredibly hard to put that group together. And then, man, are we excited to get on the grass with those guys that we can start to not just evaluate, but develop that group. That's one position that'll drastically, physically and mentally change from today to when we line up in September. Every day for those guys, the ability to play the way we play every day for them guys is absolutely critical. And every part of what they do to be able to, the hope is you have 10 guys going into fall that you feel really good about.
We have a single
Play caller. Yeah, Joel Gordon it calls the plays on game day. And I go back to the way we play, it's really hard to interject sometimes in the middle of it. I have been known to interject a lot at times, but it is truly a collective effort. You get done in between the drives, and it is everybody talking. Again, part of what's made us really, really good is that there's no egos. Everybody has a voice. Sometimes that voice is coming from one of the young coaches, and it's like, hey, I'm going to speak up here. I think we should do this, and it's as good of an idea as we've had. And so it is truly a collective effort. I would tell you that entire offense is super, super involved in between drives. If somebody has an idea in between, guys will speak up. We have a really good rhythm and a really good system. We got to get Larry Scott, Larry Porter in the fold in terms of feeling comfortable enough to speak up in it, and they certainly will. Those guys are pros and vets that have done it for a long time. But everybody knows they've got a voice in there. They can speak up. I certainly do speak up when I feel like I've got something that's really good. You can ask Joel, but my hit percentage on scoring touchdowns when I speak up is up there.
Peter Rodriguez from AO.com. The 5 tight end transfers come in. I guess what's your vision for that group in this offense? And what do you see in the incoming group that's coming in?
Yeah, that tight end spot is so critical for us offensively, simply in the ability to create matchup issues, formation variation, and being able to be multiple. I talked about changing year to year, finding the best 11 and then the next best 11. We've been at our best when we've been able to play in some heavier sets. I think in this conference, especially with the way the D-lines are, man, you've got to be able to equalize edges, and you've got to be able to create some formation variation, make people think. Everybody talks about how good of players there are in this conference. My 2 years in it, I would tell you the coaching matches that as well. It's the elite of the elite, and the more variation you can have, the better. And the tight ends allow you to create that variation. As you look at that group that we took, production, again, very similar to this running back group. It's production. It's the ability to be really, really multiple with what those guys can do, meaning they can play in the box, they can play out of the box, they can play in the backfield. You were trying to find high production, high physicality, but guys that can do things with the ball in their hands as well. And you don't want a bunch of guys that are the same in that room. And as you look at those guys, they're all a little bit different. They have a little bit of a different skill set. As a play caller, it allows you to be really, really multiple based on who's in there. That's what we went out and had to go after.
Last one from Taylor.
Taylor Corn, The Barn. When you're talking to high school prospects, how do you manage those conversations with guys who are eager to come in and contribute early while emphasizing the importance of patience and giving yourself time to develop?
Yeah, Taylor, I would tell you there's so much more that goes into that because I think going back to this NIL question earlier, it's what are you willing to invest and wait, and there's so many positions where guys at a high level can come in and play right away, and then there's certain spots that are developmental spots, and then you're trying to gauge how long are you willing to wait, and that's that portal versus high school question. I would tell you our stance on it has always been to be really, really honest and show a depth chart, show where you feel like, man, this is where you can be if you're at your best. I do think guys are realistic in the sense that you're coming into the best league in college football. Like, you got to be physically, mentally ready to go get it. And certain spots are easier. Obviously, the skill spots are easier because there's less of a developmental, physical element to it. Not that there's not a physical element, but less of that to play in the trenches in this conference. as a young guy, you got to be special and elite, like a one-of-one type. And if that's the case, then you got to be ready to make that investment. If you're ready to make that investment, that's who's playing. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that's changed is there's an investment that goes, financial investment that goes with the caliber as well. And you're trying to constantly gauge, if they're not going to be ready, am I ready to make that investment? I would tell you, you're working through that constantly. But there's guys that you're watching that you're like, man, like that's a day one ready to go play guy. But again, so much goes into that from a mental side, from a true physical development side, the ability, and when I say mental side, the ability to learn it, to be able to go play fast. But I think the ultimate answer to your question is you got to be really, really, really honest with the guys. Here's where I see it, because I think the one thing that hasn't changed is the transparency has to be real. Because as soon as these guys realize that, man, this guy's full of it, you're not going to get the next one there. And so you're just as transparent as you can, and you try to be as accurate with your evaluations as you can. And I think that stuff, you get better as you go. I feel really confident in our scouting department, and then certainly our position coaches and myself in trying to project that. But there's also an element where, like, man, I can't take him right now for whatever reason. In college football right now, you may be able to go take him next year. So building those relationships throughout, no matter if you're going to be in it or not, to be able to be in it later on down the road. Thank you, Coach. Thank you, guys. War Eagle.